What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex, and in this video, I want to talk about how friendships and relationships could work in Hogwarts Legacy. Just have a speculative discussion kind of video. Been a little while, right? Because we talked about some pretty funny rumors and leaks over the last couple of videos I've done. I want to kind of boil it back down into an aspect of this game. How could they handle a specific thing? So, before I get too far in, if you guys are new here, make sure, as always, you're subscribed. Make sure you guys have the bell icon turned on. And if you guys want to subscribe, if you guys super like me, you guys want to subscribe to my second channel. The channel's name is Podcast Now Plus. I'll leave a link for it in the description below. I do, by the way, just want to say, really thank you so much for all the support you guys have given me over the last couple of videos. We've had a couple of really awesome, we've had a nice stretch, basically, of Hogwarts Legacy videos. I know people there always will be the haters. They're in the very small minority, right? And you guys help, basically break through all that. So this is something that really, like, you could say it for a lot of different things, but when I talk about making or breaking the game, something about having friends and having relationships and just like stories to tell, basically, they are really fundamental. And I know I've mentioned this before. Mass Effect to me is one of the best examples, maybe the best example of a game like this that I can think of in terms of building relationship. Now, there are plenty of others. I can even go, I don't know if you consider like Final Fantasy VII Remake one of those kind of games. I don't beat and play enough of a lot of open world games to really be able to speak too heavily on them, just because I have a really hard time beating games. It takes me forever, and most times I can't even get to the end of a normal game, let alone an open world game that has 50, 60, 70 hours. But Mass Effect is a game that I did, and they're not the longest games in the world. I spent maybe 30 hours on each of Mass Effect 2 and 3, but one of the reasons I think Mass Effect stands out so much is the characters. Now, there's a lot of other things in Mass Effect that are like top level, okay, in terms of like development, but the characters in that game and the relationships that you form with them, whether or not they're your love interest or whatever, are absolutely incredible. And so for Hogwarts Legacy, I think about a livable Hogwarts, a livable world. That's totally something I'm looking for in this game. And like livable world beyond Hogwarts too is something that's important. Obviously the story, obviously how you use spells, obviously things you can just do in this game, like separated from the main stuff. They're all important. There's about 100 different things that are important in this game. But if you go through it and you really can't take anything from it, and you can't like, if we can't go online and say, hey, did you do that quest with this specific character, and did you experience this thing with them? If we're not saying those things, I don't think they're getting the most out of it. I really don't. For a game like this, and you think about I was gonna say Hogwarts, I keep saying it, right? But you think about Harry Potter and just the idea. I mean, one of the greatest strengths of the books, of the world, the wizarding world, are the characters. And it's not just the main cast either, right? It's sometimes characters that sometimes are fan favorites. But when you're populating a world like Hogwarts in terms of this game, you need these characters to be developed. And so, and also when you have it where you're going to be sorted and you're going to be ideally doing different things based off of where you are, that is very, very exciting. So you look at, that's another thing, right? How are they going to make this game different? We can talk about that in future videos too. How do you make the game different if I'm a Gryffindor and you're a Hufflepuff? Okay. Now there's a couple of ways of doing it, but one of the ways is who you're friends with. Now, the thing that kind of sparked this discussion in my head was those leaks. So if you guys didn't watch those leaks videos, I think 2 of the last 4 or 5 Hogwarts videos I did were talking about these leaks that were kind of laughable. Some things could absolutely be true, but I think in general, the idea that these people know anything about the game, like factually, is not true, okay? But one of the things, especially in, I think, the last leak, right? Sometimes I get confused because I talk about it so much, was about like friends and about people and how everybody is random, but then when you start to develop relationships with people, they become solidified characters. And I said I don't believe that. I don't think that's how it's going to work, but it did get me thinking, like, okay, well, how will it work? How will they actually do it? I do think going a Mass Effect, I mean, if you really want to go like super advanced, you can go into like Red Dead territory and stuff like that, right? You have like a cast of characters. So it's tough too because of houses. Like if I'm in Hufflepuff and you're in Gryffindor, the other way around, do we have, like, the people that we're friends with, are those the same characters that are friends with anybody that plays the game in that? And then characters that are in other houses, are they randomized, or are they actual solidified characters as well? That's something that they kind of have to decide, right? But you do imagine, even if you look at a game like Dragon Age or something like that, I know I keep going like EA, but you'll have, I would assume, like a 10 to 15 character roster beyond like professors. I don't necessarily think they're gonna count, right? And that's kind of easier because, you know, you're walking through Hogwarts, you're gonna see a lot of students, I would imagine, walking around with you. But then the teachers, the professors, they, you know, there's only so many of them, so there can only be like specific people, right? And they may be tied into story stuff as well. And you got to think about that as well. I'm sure there's gonna be main characters that are tied into the story, and then there's gonna be side characters that maybe are just there. Well, there's actually factions of that. Maybe characters that are only accessible, like talking to them when you're doing certain side stuff, and maybe there's just characters that populate the world just to do it. So I would say I would be content with this game if they gave like a 10, 15, 20 character roster excluding teachers. And I've said that before, and I think the reasoning is because you can still develop relationships with them, and they need to make it where you can go far enough with each of these people where maybe not everybody is going to do that. You know what I mean? So obviously, like, you being good and bad separates some of your decisions from the decisions I may make. But when it comes down to it, if you have like so many people that you can interact with, you're gonna have limited things that you can do with them, and like, I'm eventually going to be able to do everything you're able to do. Now, a thing that they could also do, though, is block characters off, which is probably what they should do, right? I actually just rethought of this now. They should block characters off depending on what you do. That goes based off of you being, I would say, like, morality, good or bad. So if you're super good, maybe some of the more, you know, like, in between characters or bad characters, maybe they won't even talk to you. You know what I mean? And that goes based off of your morality, the decisions you make in the game. But maybe they even go a step further and they do that in the very beginning, where it's like, okay, if you're a Hufflepuff, flat out, some Slytherin people are just not gonna talk to you. You know what I mean? And that, I really do think that kind of makes a very dynamic world where, even though, if you guys didn't get the point, basically what I'm trying to do with these kind of speculations and trying to work my way through how they'll do it, I want it to be unique in a sense. I want my experience with this game to be different than your experience with this game. And that is tough because you are limited, because they can't make like 20 characters for each person that's ever going to play this game. That's why the whole randomized thing I don't think makes sense, because it sounds a lot like Watch Dogs. And if you guys played Watch Dogs, I don't think it worked all that well. You hear voice actors repeated nonstop. There's really only a small group of people that did voice acting, and they just replaced them for the characters. Some of the voice acting is atrocious. The characters, none of them are really all that, like, in depth. Like, none of them really have super big backstories, and that's what I think you kind of get if you make them all randomized. Again, something like a GTA or a Red Dead, I mean, you have your core cast, the characters that are in your main missions. You maybe have side characters that appear every now and then, right? Like just like a secondary cast that appear in some, you know, maybe they appear in some main quests, maybe their place is more in side stuff, but you can interact and you can do stuff, but maybe you can't do stuff as in depth with them as you can the main cast. And then you have the third group is just, you know, the random events that can happen in the game. You're never going to see them again, but they just provide something to the story where it's like things are happening. Somebody's being kidnapped on the side of the road. That just happens, you know, and you're never going to see them again, but it just shows you that, like, things are always happening in the world. And I think that's perfect. And that's kind of the structure. And maybe that's asking too much, but really, I mean, that's kind of what all open world games should strive for. You know what I mean? You have a main cast. That's to be expected, right? A cast that you can go very far with. Now, I'm not saying there's going to be love interest in this game. However, you are going to be, you know, if you're a fifth-year student, you're what, like 16 years old? There could be some, like, relationships. I mean, you could have boyfriends and girlfriends, and people do that when they're teenagers, right? So, like, I don't think there's anything wrong with a kiss or just having, you know, something a little bit more than a friend, right? I think the game is going to be T for teen, by the way. But they could even do something like Harry Potter, by the way, where at the end of the game, if you're going to have a huge time jump, maybe you find out you marry that person. It's something very simple as that. So you know you have a relationship with this person. Maybe you can get into fights and stuff. You have a teenage romance. But, you know, if you're with them at the end of the game, like the last mission, then you'll end up marrying them. Or maybe if you're iffy, you find out that you guys break up, or something like that. And you can do that with some characters in the main cast, and maybe you go with one person and I go with a different person. Same thing with friends. Maybe you become really, really close friends with one, and I become close friends with another one. Now, again, the issue is you can't have an infinite cast of characters that, like, oh, I made friends with player 246, and I made friends with player 952. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like there's going to be 10,000 unique characters that we're going to be able to make friends with, right? But I think you could do that with the main cast. Again, like a secondary cast, which could include, I guess, professors. You see them, they'll pop up. Maybe they'll be like a reoccurring thing, but you can't go super far with them as far as you can go relationship-wise and talking-wise with the main cast. And then you'll have, again, like the third faction where you're just going around Hogwarts and somebody, I don't know, somebody gets like bullied in the bathroom. You'll never see that person again, but it just shows kind of a dramatic thing that happens, right? It's a little bit of a sad thing, and it's like, you can stop it or you cannot stop it. And I'm just coming up with examples, right? But again, that kind of adds to it, where it's like people are doing things in Hogwarts, and you'll never see them again because you can't have infinite people on screen at once, and you can't, and the game can't always remember every single face that's been in it, okay? But you know that things are happening in Hogwarts, and I think if you, I know like you could say I'm asking a lot. I really don't think that's asking for like the world here. It really isn't. I'm just trying to come up with things that other open world. I'm trying to come up with a mix of like Red Dead and Mass Effect. And if they can get close, even if they don't match it, even if they just get close, I would say it would be a pretty big success. So let me know in the comments below, guys. What do you think? How do you think friendships? I know a lot of you guys, see, I haven't played that many Harry Potter games in the history of the world. I know a lot of you guys have, and some of the things I bring up, you guys will say, hey, well, this Harry Potter game actually did, like Quidditch or a Wizard's Chess. Some of you guys have said, well, like this game has done this aspect kind of good. Let's have that repeated. So maybe this has been done before, and maybe I just don't know about it. So let me know how you would do it, or maybe how other games have done in the past that you like. Make sure, as always, you guys are subscribed, bell icon turned on. And again, if you guys want to subscribe to my second channel, Podcast Now Plus, the link for that is in the description below. You're going to be continuing with the Hogwarts Legacy videos every, I tend to do it every 3 or 4 days. If I see any more leaks, funny or serious leaks, I'll make sure to cover it, and we'll just go from there, continuing to wait for new information, and hopefully we get it relatively soon, and then we'll have an absolute party, okay? Thank you for watching, and I'll see you all on the next video.